Hello newcomers and old-timers, I am Cole Scratches, and thank you for joining me to take another look at what I found. And, I found aliens! March 13th, 1997, a scant 2 years after the alien autopsy was broadcast to America, the existence of alien life in the universe was reaffirmed to an audience in the hundreds of thousands, as a formation of strange, otherworldly lights passed over Phoenix, Arizona. While one video from an obscure source may be faked, there is no dismissal of an entire city and more witnessing the same unexplained sight. A gigantic airborne ship in the shape of a perfect triangle above the city center, bearing down upon the Estrella Mountains in the distance. Unexplained, mysterious, and captured on video numbering in the dozens, possibly hundreds. Of course, more than a few directors decided that this specific event was worth basing more than one found footage films on. It's kind of like Bigfoot in that sense. It's just one of those films that there's a dime a dozen movies referencing this specific event. And today we're going to be looking at the Phoenix Incident. Based loosely on the historical event, The Phoenix Incident is a mockumentary-style film written and directed by Keith Aram, a world-renowned talent scout and director within the games industry. It's about a group of 5 friends out rambling in the Estrella Mountains, March 13, 1997. The lights serve as a literal backdrop for the events that follow, as the group fall prey to events beyond their control, and their footage serving to unearth a conspiracy of a scope they could never have imagined. Kind of. When Madeline Tolentini described the Chupacabra, she was actually describing Syl from the Species movies. And rather than a warning, Keith seemed to take this as an instruction. You'll see what I mean. Let's take a look at the Phoenix Incident and find out if nearly 20 years within one creative field translates well to another. We open to war footage, which I don't know if it is real or not, but if it is, it's not the most offensive thing about this opening. You know the growing tensions and conflicts going on in the Middle East and Slavic territories? Well, all that is just a cover for an alien invasion happening right now across Europe. Which the United States is fighting single-handedly, because of course they are. That's not the issue I take with this opening. March 13th, 1997, the US military engaged the interlopers outside of Phoenix, Arizona, and this entire war is in retaliation for it. Currently, their intrusions are focused on easily contained areas of the Middle East, with projections estimating them reaching populated areas within 2 years. Why? Shouldn't they be raining hellfire down on America? Basically, the premise is bullshit, but it's too early to call a duck a duck. After all, none of this would have been unveiled if not for 4 people who happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And if you're a passionate gamer, you may recognize these people because they're all pretty big name voice actors. That's clever on Aram's part because, on the one hand, they're tried and true actors, and on the other, their faces aren't recognizable enough to immediately break suspension of disbelief. Unless you are a gamer. Glenn Lauder is played by Yuri Lowenthal, aka Peter freaking Parker from Marvel's Spider-Man. Travis Willingham played Two-Face in Batman the Telltale series, and Thor in Avengers Assemble, but here he is Mitch Adams. Ryan Stone is played by Booker DeWitt himself, Troy Baker, and last but not least, Jacob Reynolds, played by Liam O'Brien. You know, Asura and Red 13. Just hearing all of that, you expect great things from these people. This is all footage recovered by the Air Force after the 4 people disappeared March 13th. The real movie, if you can call it that, is the documentary surrounding their deaths and what the footage uncovered when revealed to the public.
You think this was a conspiracy?
Absolutely. Something happened out there in the desert. We got too close to something much bigger. The military didn't want us to know.
While the leak of the footage is a bit iffy, when it was revealed, a few people who were involved in the incident came forwards, willing to talk about it and give some context to the material. Among others, an unnamed Air Force pilot, played by Brian Bloom. Another big-name voice actor who played BJ Blazkowicz in Wolfenstein 2, and Pike in the A-Team movie. That last bit is probably why he is obscured now, even though we can clearly still see his face.
They've been here before.
But Phoenix was different.
How is it different?
First time we'd been provoked into an attack, or maybe the first time they were.
4 civilian men became collateral damage.
Okay, so we know they're gonna die from the get-go. This gives Aram a choice. He can either spend the entire movie making the characters as relatable and likable as possible, so we can feel all the more tragic when they do die. Or he can... Fucking Deliverance sons of bitches. I don't think the documentary side of the film got the memo though, because it's still trying to make their deaths out to be a loss, even when we see Spider-Man feed his dog Corona and cereal. Going back to the aliens, there were signs of their approach, such as fall streaks and volcanic eruptions. I love how this movie is basically saying the US Army are a bunch of K-men who will go, "Skybad! Attack!" BJ Blazkowicz continues to tell us about how a chevron-shaped object had been trailing behind Hale-Bopp's comet, before breaking off and entering Earth's atmosphere above Phoenix. Kind of punching a hole in what he said about there being atmospheric distortions in the months and weeks leading up to the incident, but Hale-Bopp's comet was passing by Earth at that same time, so Aram got that right at least. Every now and again, the exposition is interrupted when the movie decides to remind us these are the guys the movie is about. Unfortunately...
Mitch was a good kid. He didn't deserve any of this.
Aram. Showing friends and family miss these assholes, while establishing what crabs they were, doesn't make me empathize with them. It's not all redneck tomfoolery though. March 12th, the gang spends at a roadhouse, taking it easy and discussing their futures. Booker asks Red 13 why he's not painting anymore. Only then the entire table turns on him, hazing him about how he doesn't make music anymore. This makes him get up and run outside to pout, because they should be more sensitive. Yeah, don't ask artists sensitive questions you're not prepared to answer yourself, you gonad.
I know what I'm doing with my life, and at least out of the 4 of us, I got a plan to do something.
As a fellow artist with a plan for what I'm doing with my life, allow me to say, liar, liar, pants on fire. The way the recovered footage is edited into the documentary feels a bit like flickering between channels on the TV. Because neither side really complements the other, and it comes off more as an interruption no matter what side you're interested in. But they are starting to intersect as the gang find themselves traveling through the desert towards one of the fall streaks Blazkowicz established as UFOs entering the atmosphere earlier, while several military aircraft fly by towards the same destination.
You can look at this. On it. You ever put oil in this thing?
Okay, I admit I was surprised by that, but that's not how jump scares work. The very convenient blowout leaves the group stranded 11 kilometers away from the first contact. Which I am curious how exactly the documentary crew knew, but I mean it's possible to calculate based on sun position, flight records, time recorded, etc. But if you did all that, it would have been nice to show. You know, substantiating the claims you're making.
How far is it to your folks' place? Maybe we just walk it.
No, it's like at least 15 miles.
Yeah, but you set off now, you can be there before dark. I mean, it is a walk, but I think braving the Jaguars is better than sitting around waiting like a ribeye in a microwave. My naive attitude to unknown biomes aside, Glenn, Mitch and Ryan do decide to brave the desert in search of desert-side assistance. I'd find this ridiculous, but the desert is unusually lively today, with Apaches flying overhead and jet planes darting across the landscape.
Do you think they had any idea of what was about to happen?
They didn't know. We didn't know.
Okay, but according to the very clearly edited footage, you had helicopters in the area swirling around, and you mean to tell me not one of them saw these guys, and not one of them could have settled down and just flown them out of there, even though you have been so careful for the past 8 years to keep the world's a secret that no one has noticed yet, even though it supposedly reached populated areas 3 years ago. Especially if the unpopulated areas are as populated as this desert. I mean, there's even a convenient hermit living here. Goes to show there's always someone around to give you a hand. You need to leave now! See? that guy knows what's up. That would be Walton Gayson, played by Michael Adamthwaite, who later becomes the official main suspect in the disappearance. Heaven's Gate leader, lunatic, and overall convenient scapegoat. He has been brought up a few times before now, but he really wasn't relevant until now, so I just skipped past it.
They come, they take, they feed. They have no pity, no remorse.
Okay, if you finish that reference, I'm willing to forgive all of this movie's bullshit.
Their vision is pure.
God damn it, whack job! So yes, that's Gayson. And as quick as he entered this movie, he leaves it. Right on time, as the guys arrive with the desert assistants, and the girl arriving with ATVs, letting them continue their journey towards perdition.
Those boys found something out there, something no one was supposed to see.
What do you think they found?
The truth.
Oh yes, the omnipotent truth. That must never get out, lest it cause a mass panic that'll have economies collapsing and nations crumbling. Because the world's governments and people have always been that susceptible to the truth. It's finally 9 o'clock at night, meaning the events truly kick in. Reports of unusual light phenomenon have been pouring in from the Phoenix residents, and from where they've settled after a long day in the desert, the boys discover the chevron stretching across the evening sky, moving towards them.
You see them? The two A-10s? Shit, that's not it. Those are 15s. Oh shit, those are 15s!
To see F-15 fighter jets over a populated area has Mitch so excited he almost wets himself. And like a kid in a candy shop, he nags and nags until the others let him drag them even closer to see what's going on. How the man thought he could keep up with fighter jets on an ATV, I don't know, but there we are. Meanwhile, the film reminds us of the flare explanation, that the lights were unused ordnances that were dropped after a flight exercise, as part of something called Operation Snowbird. But, of course, we all know what it really was. I mean, we can clearly see the alien ships flying around. What?
Can you tell us specifically what Operation Snowbird is?
Operation Snowbird would deploy deterrent measures or diversionary tactics to draw eyes away from the combat zone.
So, you're confirming both the conspiracy theory and the official explanation? The lights really were flares, but they were dropped deliberately to draw attention away from the actual alien spacecraft? That's actually a genuinely good twist. Good work, Amar. Now tell me, how did no one hear the interstellar dogfight going on in the mountains? Aerial combat tends to be pretty loud, especially when planes crash and burn. Case in point. Before anyone can really assess the situation, Mitch is on his ATV and leads them on towards the crash site. When they finally get there, the rest of them don't want to approach. But Mitch's brother was a pilot, and he's having flashbacks to when he crashed. This is a discussion I feel they should have had before getting on the ATVs at all.
Listen, Mark is not up there.
In horror movies, characters do stupid shit. The difference between bad and good writing is whether or not their motivations weigh heavier than the potential danger. This doesn't change the fact that Mitch is endangering his own life and the life of his friends because he's trying to save his dead brother by proxy. This isn't a Batman movie! It's a horror movie. Less than 400 meters away from the crash site, Mitch hits the ground, hoping to, I don't know, sneak up on the pilot he's trying to rescue? Maybe he just realized what kind of movie he's in. It's not just a horror movie. It's the fucking Alien franchise.
What the fuck is that?
A zoomorph. Yeah, the design was very clearly ripped straight off of Ridley Scott's Alien, but changed just enough that Disney can't sue. As for the design, I think the size was supposed to invoke a feeling of bulk and strength in the aliens, but Yeah, I think their size has less to do with their strength and more to do with the amount of interstellar space donuts they gobble. The creature actually allows them to get on their ATVs and drive off, and reach a considerable distance before ramming into them. And suddenly there is way more than one, so they even got the advantage in numbers. Only to then let the group waddle away towards the compound they saw earlier. So either these aliens are selectively lazy, stupid, or just like fucking with people. That does seem to be the case, as they decide to drag one of the ATVs up a cliff wall, just to throw it down at the group with horrible CGI. Interestingly, the artist in question went on to design the dragons on Game of Thrones. And while I have problems with the design, I think it makes the film look even less believable. I have to admit the way the creatures move actually looks pretty good. So I'm guessing either their strength lies in creature animation, or they just delivered the bare minimum for a paycheck, because they realized this movie would not go on their CV. The herd of sumomorphs have grown exponentially in just minutes. What the hell kind of Whovian clown cars were they flying around in? Despite their growing numbers, they're still refusing to do anything, making them even less threatening, despite the group hamming it up. They manage to reach the compound where our old friend Gason is trying to please his revolver, as he's had enough of waiting for salvation. Establishing he's deranged, with nothing to lose, right as the four come knocking. That's convenient. But at least he's consistently irrational, as upon letting the men in, he decides the aliens are heaven sent and lets them in as well. Makes me wonder why he let the group in at all, but maybe he thought getting killed by angels was better than killing himself. What a Viking. When your predator is a procrastinator, even a ramshackle hut can do for a fortress. And we got many new and exciting camera angles, like from one corner of the room, or another one. And how exactly are the cameras and lights still working if the power is off? They do find a spare shotgun, which is nice, but they're still not entirely at ease about the situation.
I'm sorry I put you, Mom.
Key to relieving tension through humor. Be funny! Also, are they that dangerous? I mean, at this point I feel like E.T. was just playing tag with you, and you took it the wrong way because you're a bunch of xenophobic assholes! Okay, I'll admit they're a bit dangerous. Not very, as some PS3 graphics break in through the door, and yet Gason manages to wander around without incident. Until he reaches the group, that is.
Turn the power back on!
Why? They're already inside the compound, all you're doing is locking yourself in with them. The army decides this is the best time to rain hellfire down on the compound to kill the animals. The alien ones, not the baboons inside. And the characters seem to lose direction for want of reason. Mitch decides he needs more ammo, so Gason tells him it's in the basement. First of all, why would he want to run around when bombs are falling, and why did Gason keep spare ammo so far away from the shotgun? Also, Gason has a factory in the basement. Somehow.
They let us here. He's helping them.
Aha! That explains absolutely nothing. You're an idiot. Maybe not, as the three separate themselves for some reason, and Ryan gets held up by Gason, who is now a zombie.
Please. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Gason is no more.
Let's go!
He is now Gaylord. With Gaylord MIA, the victims rush for the door, with Mitch taking the lead for Glenn and Ryan to slip away unnoticed. This plan backfires when the aliens actually remembers they're supposed to be killing people here.
That was the worst thing I've ever seen.
And so there were two. Mitch and Glenn backtrack for the house rather than face the Kraken head-on before arriving at a corridor of homage. Somehow the camera becomes shell-shocked right as a helicopter arrives, just in time to lift the young men out of there. Except, surprise! The aliens have plasma casters. Somebody call the Predators, they have a leak. With the herd or swarm bearing down on them, Ryan offers himself up as a meal, allowing Glenn to take off into the night, until he is far away from the Sumomorphs, all safe and sound. And it's very convenient that the helmet came off right as the gore effects would have been too expensive. And with that, the movie closes on the sombering non-fact that aliens are here, we are at war, and 3 years ago they reached populated areas. The end! And what did I think of it? Well, the director has mostly worked on video games as a talent scout or occasional director, and a lot of those games were pretty damn big. He works on Metro Exodus, Saints Row the Third, Army of Two, Titanfall, and he really should stick to video games. The Phoenix incident seems to come from a good place, framing an unforeseen incident as a tragedy with the people left behind looking for answers being stonewalled by the US government. But the presentation makes little sense around the movie as it actually is. It's a by-the-numbers survival tale where some pieces of meat are picked off one by one. It's boring, it's cliché, and it does nothing new to make it stand out from the crowd. The footage inside the mockumentary is bare bones, only just about showing how the victims got from point A to B to C and D. That'd be fine if it actually got interesting when the aliens did show up, but partly I didn't care enough about the characters to be invested in whether they lived or died, and partly the pursuit itself wasn't exciting. Despite being shown to be incredibly fast and bestial, the aliens seemed to hold back for no obvious reason, and the brutal feasts were never shown with enough detail to be unnerving. Funnily enough, if it wasn't for the mockumentary presentation, it probably would have made for a better film. If they hadn't included the eyewitness accounts, interviews and so on, they would have either had more runtime to deepen the characters, or more money to make the special effects look better. The footage could have been leaked by a whistleblower and then assembled by a family member or something. The movie really wouldn't have lost anything, because I'm not even sure what was gained by the presentation. The interviews really didn't make the footage more significant, and claiming the US government is involved in a covert war against alien forces that would have reached populated areas within 2 years after the film's release is asinine. On a visual level, the film did alright. The creatures are obviously xenomorphs and CGI, but what few glances we get of them don't look too bad for what they are. The lighting is also pretty good, with most of the film shot in natural light, but when the group entered the compound, the director abandoned this sense of realism to instead make the scene look as captivating as possible. Ironically, this made the film look worse, in my opinion. The Phoenix incident is a disappointment. The plot and premise are alright, but the story wavers between forgettable and stupid, with no charm to make it worthwhile. The best I can say about it is it's inoffensive. It's not worth getting angry about, it just kind of exists. After very little deliberation, I say the Phoenix incident comes in at a 4 on a scale of 11. Thank you all for watching. I have been CauseScratches, and I hope you will see me again next time to take another look at what I found.